Hi, I'm Selena from Annie's Bookstop of Worcester, and I'm here with George Jreige, who is a middle grade fantasy author. And George, could you please explain to everyone what your newest book, and I see it right behind you there, is all about? You're,
Absolutely. Thanks.
and you're a
Yeah,
debut author as well.
indeed I am. Thank you, Selena. Yeah, so I am George Jreige, the author of SHAD, HADID and the Alchemists of Alexandria. This book comes out October 4th with HarperCollins, and it centers on a 12-year-old Arab American immigrant who discovers he comes from a long line of alchemists and receives a mysterious invitation to the Alexandria Academy, which is supposedly a school for alchemy. But once he arrives, he finds that everything is not all as it seems.
Aha. And what exactly is alchemy? Just for people who don't realize what it is.
Great question. So, when I was thinking of writing this novel, I wanted to make it unique. I wanted to give it a twist that felt more personal to me. And alchemy is essentially the basis for chemistry, and it originated in the Arab world and it spread across Asia. But the essential gist of it is that you use everyday minerals and ingredients to create something, fantastical. For example, they thought they could create gold out of combining several ingredients. And you might have heard of the philosopher's stone, all that came out of alchemy. So I wanted to, given that it originated in the Arab world, I was like, all right, perfect. We're going to give this an Arab twist, and it's going to be different and unique from other magic school books.
And what was the inspiration for
Yeah, great question. So there's a lot of different themes that are resonant in the book, but I will say the inspiration for the character of Shadid himself, who is a 12-year-old troublemaking kid who loves his family, was actually myself. Growing up, I had a lot of source material to draw from, as my teachers will attest. Lots of trouble, lots of good trouble, but always kind of making sure that my heart was in the right place. And that very much fits in with Shad Hadid's character and what makes him really unique as a hero.
Okay. Um, and what kind of research did you do to write this book, and um, how much of it were you already familiar with?
So I actually didn't have to do a lot of research for this book. Typically, when I write a book, there's a balance, and you either lean more into the heavy research or lean more into what you know. The traditional adage of write what you know.
Right.
So with this book, I definitely was writing what I knew. And for that reason, writing the book itself, the act of writing, felt very natural, very organic. It wasn't as painful as some books are to write. You're kind of trying to force the words out. That was not the experience with this book. And so a lot of it, from the culture to the behavior of the characters, to the themes, I was writing from experience and from things that are deeply personal to me. So there actually wasn't a lot of research involved, and I feel like that gives it a very universal element.
So, what with the research that you did do, what was your favorite research story?
Yeah, so I wanted to be very inclusive of other Arab cultures. And so I wanted to try and include as many characters from across the Arab region as possible. So what I most enjoyed was making sure that not only was I including kids and characters from different nationalities across the Arab world, but I was including some of their cultures and traditions, and most fun, their foods. So I think the culinary research is always my most exciting.
That food definitely does it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Wow. Um, yeah, it's interesting. I was just emailing with one of the other authors, one of my Asian authors, and she just told me that her she just found out that her book was banned in
Oh
Florida,
no.
and she's also a middle grade author. So
But
I have these concerns that possibly your book could be banned because it's got a different culture in it. How would you feel
mhm.
about that?
Yeah, it's a very tricky trend that we are seeing across the country where unfortunately folks that don't resonate with certain books want to see them off shelves. You know, it wasn't something that was top of mind as I wrote this book, and I find that I still, as I write, don't think about the reality of book banning because I want to write from a place that is true and I don't want to modify that to appease anybody in particular. I think that if the book was banned, I would be hopeful that at least in pockets like, you know, Worcester, where Annie's is located, and other parts of the US, there are individuals not only who are getting this book in the hands of readers who can really um, resonate with it, which I find to be all kids really,
Mm-hmm.
but they are also fighting against these book bannings. And we are not only seeing the book banning succeed, we are seeing the champions of books also um, win over these, really ridiculous claims. So I just try to remain hopeful overall.
Yeah, I just asked you that question because I just found this out and I was like so furious.
Yeah,
And
it's it's really scary. This
yeah,
day and age.
yeah, it is. So what was the biggest challenge that you had in writing and putting out Shad Hadid, excuse me, Shad Hadid?
Sure. Well, I would say the biggest challenge was the publishing in and of itself, because as any author who's traditionally published can tell you, it is no easy task to find an agent who really understands the story, has a shared vision, and then find a publisher who has the same, right?
Mhm.
So on the road to publication, I encountered a lot of individuals who wanted to change the book to fit their vision and to change the heart of the story to fit their vision. And while honored that they wanted to work with me, I really did not want to compromise that vision just because the themes of, modernism versus traditionalism, of family versus found family, all these things were so important to me, and I wanted kids to be able to take them away. So it was finding the right champion for the book at every stage of the process, that was just so critical. And I'm thankful that I made it through and the book really kept its heart.
Oh, that's wonderful that you actually found
Yeah,
someone.
thank you.
Um, what character, was there a character that you loved or hated the most?
So I really love, and you'll meet this character early on. There's a mentor figure to Shad who really takes him in because Shad doesn't really have anybody to play that role in his life. And I think that whether a teacher, whether a coworker, whether your neighbor, right? Sometimes we find unlikely mentors in folks that we aspire to be like, and Chad finds it in this figure. But this figure, and he's flawed. He's not perfect himself, and he will admit it. And he has kind of a temper, and but I find that deep down there's that heart of gold that keeps him wanting to help Shad, that sees a bit of Shad in himself. And I find that of all the characters in the story, he was the most enjoyable to write, because of those things, but also because of his pet cat, who actually is a major character in the story.
Oh, I
So
love it.
I think both of those things, writers are going to love this character.
That's wonderful. Okay, and now what else can we expect from you in the near future?
Yeah. Oh God. There there are a lot of really interesting things cooking, and I don't know how much I can talk about, but I will go into some detail for the audience here.
Okay.
So, first, of course, there is Shad Book 2, which is going to be a radical departure from Book 1 in terms of theme, in terms of storytelling style. What I try and do is give the readers something new with each iteration, even if it's part of the same series. And so Shad Book 1 is very much a magic school book. It's finding a way to bring magic to this school that has lost it, this ancient art of alchemy, introducing this world. But in book two, not only do I really bring readers into this world in a way that we step outside the school and there's this massive world of alchemy that's out there, albeit hidden. It's also told differently story-wise and centers on different characters and obviously new villains. And I think that readers are going to really enjoy that. In addition to the HADID series, which I know you'll all love, there is another book deal that is yet unannounced with HarperCollins. And all I will say at this point is that if you like graphic novels, or if you know a reader who is a fan of graphic novels, this is going to be really a fantastic story for you. It's a deeply personal story to myself as someone who has alopecia. So it's going to be, I think, one of those stories that, again, universally resonates, but it's going to find readers in specific who really need it, the way that I would have loved to have a story like that growing up.
Oh, interesting. Interesting.
Yeah.
And I know alopecia is now something that a lot of people know about that didn't know
Yes.
about before. So
Absolutely.
that's great. Yeah. Okay, now I have some questions for you about being a writer.
Sure.
What is your favorite part about being a writer on the whole writing and publishing process?
So I was recently speaking to a bookseller, and we were talking about how a lot of authors like myself um, just don't know how a lot of the publishing industry works. And what I told him was, hey, I think you're expecting a little too much from individuals who, some of us, our jobs are literally to write fart jokes for a living. And it's just, I think that's actually what I like most about the job. It's being like able to create literally anything.
Mhm.
Of course, doing it effectively. However, being able to create something out of nothing, and all too often, especially in today's world, we don't have that outlet for creativity. And I think that not only being able to have that outlet, but being a necessity for my career is something that I really enjoy as a creatively minded individual in general.
Yeah, very, very well said. That's excellent. Um, so what do you consider the most challenging part of the writing process, and how do you overcome it?
Imposter syndrome. So, whatever job you do, I feel like, and if you don't have imposter syndrome, I envy you. But no matter what job, whether you're an author or something else, I think we all struggle with a little bit of imposter syndrome. And it's especially tricky for writers because if we really feel that like phenomena and we dwell on it, it will create writer's block and it will stop us and prevent us from finding the joy in writing.
Yeah.
And if you don't write from a place of joy, it is a tough thing to do. Let me tell you, creating words out of nothing and making them make sense is not easy. So if you don't enjoy it and you don't enjoy, revising and rereading and all the labor that goes into that, it can be really tricky. So, being able to face that imposter syndrome head on and remind yourself, you do this out of the love of it. You don't do this out of a sense of pride or ego. That's how I tend to deal with it.
Yep, very true. So what has been your favorite adventure during your writing career?
Oh God. So this summer, I was actually invited to give a lecture in a writing retreat, which happened to be in a chateau in the north of France.
Oh, wow.
So, yes, if you're a fan of old chateaus, like old castle style structures, that's where I was for about a week and a half. And it was just a lovely experience. And nothing is more fun than getting to dive into the stories of other writers and also help them along their journey. So it was a mix of all those things, not to mention delicious pastries.
Oh,
So that was quite the adventure.
and that is such a perfect place to write too. I mean,
Truly,
oh,
truly,
what
especially if you write fantasy.
yeah, that's true. Oh, what a gorgeous place. Just
Yeah.
um Okay, so what is the greatest lesson that you've learned thus far in your writing career?
Ooh, that's a good question. That's a tough question, to be quite honest, because there are so many. I would say to continue to reject the temptation to think of yourself as something other than a professional. I think it's really easy, especially when you have a book published and you see it in all these stores and people are, really excited about it. It inflates the ego. And I mentioned it a little bit with imposter syndrome, but with every peak, there's a valley.
Yeah.
And so being able to maintain a level head across all of it, and again, just try to find joy in it each and every day. And remember that if, folks are excited, absorb that, revel in it, sure. But remind yourself at the end of the day, you are a professional. You have to get up every day and do the work, whether it's writing, whether it's interacting with individuals, whether it's doing really fun interviews like this one right here. It's just maintaining that level head and tempering the ego. I think that's
Mhm.
a really hard thing to do, and that's going to be a lifelong journey. But I'm really humbled to have the opportunity to be on that journey.
That's great. So what piece of advice would you want to share with other authors?
So the piece of advice is this: if you put your head down and do the work and respect the work and read a lot and write a lot, it's not a matter of if you will finish a book, if you will get published, it's a matter of when. So have a lot of patience with yourself, with others, um, because the publishing industry, if you don't have patience, um, will chew you up and spit you out. So be sure to give yourself grace, be patient, and stick with it.
Hmm.
It's a
That's
tough industry.
it is. It's very tough. And would you suggest, like, after you've written a book and you've sent it out to different publishers and things like that, work on a different one?
I'm in the camp that says you absolutely should work on a different project, if only because you must understand once you're in it, it's really hard to find that creative energy to start working on a new project. So ahead of publishing your first novel or while you're waiting on, news from your agent or editor, if you can get working on another project, that project may end up being your second book deal, right? So you never know what can manifest out of it. Not to mention, it does take your mind off of the stress of the current project. So absolutely, Selena, I say start working on a new project because again, once you're in the grind of it, once you're marketing yourself, once you're having to do revisions on that novel, it's really hard to work on anything else.
Hmm. Good point. Are there any groups, clubs, or organizations that you would recommend to other writers that might have helped you in your career?
Sure. So I would say the first thing is find other writers who
Mhm.
are in a similar place to yourself in their own writing journey, because then you could be a support network for each other. You can critique each other's work. You can see each other grow, which is just really rewarding. I know that a lot of the writers I started off with are now published, have agents, have found success in their own way, and that's always really lovely to see. Um, for more tangible groups, if you write science fiction and fantasy, then the Science Fiction Writers of America group
Mhm.
tends to be a really good one. They organize conferences, they put out newsletters with advice, they have workshops. So that's a fantastic resource. And then find your regional um, Society of Book Writers and Illustrators. I think I've heard folks say the acronym as SQUIBI. So
Skip
find your
break.
regional SQUIBWI, and that's a funny word. Um, find your regional SQUIBWI because there is one in every region. I don't know if it's international at all, but there is one in every region in the U.S. especially, and they're fantastic. I'm actually later today delivering a workshop on writing pitches and query letters for them. So authors like myself give back time to those organizations and provide, really invaluable feedback and workshops and advice. So find those and gravitate towards those.
Great. Okay, now I have questions about you as a person. What is
Sure.
one thing that most people don't realize about you?
I love to do yoga.
Ah,
I'm a big yogi, not only in the physical sense, but I try and read a lot of literature on it and try to sort of find that inner peace and connectedness with everyone.
mm,
So there's that. There's also again that physical piece of it. So every morning you'll see me doing my downward dogs. So I think that's something that I don't advertise and that people definitely wouldn't realize about me, if they saw me walking down the street. But I'm all in.
okay. Um, what is or are your passions when you're not writing? And
Right.
how do you make time for your non-writing hobbies and things that you love?
Two awesome questions, Selena. So my passions first and foremost. I love food. If you read my book, it will be very evident in all of the food references that I just love the details. I love the intricacies of not only Arab cuisine, but
Mhm.
cuisine from all over. So that's definitely something that I'm interested in. I try and, with my fiance, cook, bake, try new things. I would say that another one, and one that's carried over from when I was a young kid, was gaming. So I don't find a lot of time for this one these
Mhm.
days, but one day when I'm a little more settled and I don't have to write as like voraciously, and I'm not trying to publish as many books, I think that I will pick up another video game and kind of get back into it. But I really enjoy watching others play, and I really enjoy keeping up with all the latest trends. The third is, you probably guessed it, reading.
Yep.
I think you need to kind of be a reader in some level, and I will say that um, you don't have to read what you write. A lot of people say read what you write, but um, I during the pandemic read so many graphic novels, which was not something I ever thought I would be writing.
Mhm.
And actually, because of having read so many graphic novels, I'm like, hey, I can probably do this too. And lo and behold, got a book deal in it later, which is not a twist or a direction that I ever saw my career going in. So,
Interesting.
I'm a big fan of graphic novels and comic books, and there are a lot of wonderful stories there. I actually, if you're a Worcester person, I used to love going to, and I still love going when I'm visiting to That's Entertainment
Yep.
on Park Ave.
Yeah.
So I just reading in general is lovely. Always having a book that I'm, working my way through, however slowly.
Mhm.
That's another passion of mine.
Oh, okay. What does your writing space look like? And what do you need to have around you when you're writing or editing?
Wow, that's a good question. And I will have to disappoint everyone on this. I really don't have a writing space, right? I love
Mhm.
to write in those pockets of time across the day. You're on the bus, you're stopping after a walk in the park, sitting on a park bench. I'm waking up in the morning and I'm kind of half dazed, but I pick up my phone and I do a lot of writing my phone actually. I wrote a lot of this novel on my phone. So I think that there is no particular space, but it's wherever I can find a moment of quiet. That is my writing space.
Mm.
And I'm always thinking about the story. I'm always thinking about the characters, what can benefit the story. And so I'll draw a lot from daily interactions. So I think all that I need to write is maybe my phone, which I do a lot of writing on. I love writing on my phone, and maybe a laptop, and then I can write pretty much anywhere. And I know that's not the case for a lot of individuals, but I think that if you could try and build that muscle to just write anywhere, you'll find that you have a lot more time to write, because I think that's the biggest challenge, is not just finding the time to write, which is a challenge, but the procrastination that comes with it. And so I find that I deal with the procrastination by writing in pockets of time across the day. So
Mm.
that's kind of my weird little approach.
Do you like write in a notebook or with pen?
Uh, so I don't. I
Ah,
like to I like to sketch in notebooks though. So I'll like sketch characters and I'll sketch ideas. But I won't actually put pen to paper unless I'm writing a letter to somebody in a physical notebook.
so are you an artist also?
I am someone who aspires and looks up to artists. I wouldn't call myself one. With my future projects, I partner with legitimate artists who are just so talented. I'm not quite there yet, but I love to at least do a little bit of that and dabble when I can.
So do you find the artists or does the publishers find them?
Good question. So it really depends on what your goal is. There are so many fantastic artists that you can just find on social media, and they're
Mm.
putting their art out there, and it's lovely, and they're so talented. And so that's one avenue that I use. For if you're looking up for a graphic novel deal and you're not an author illustrator, which I'm not, one thing I did was I went to my agent, because a lot of agents these days are representing illustrators as well,
Yeah.
as we see graphic novels become really hot in the market. Um, so my agent is fantastic, and she has a slew of artists whom she represents, and that's how I found the artist who I will be partnering with.
Oh, oh, okay, great. So, when you're writing, it sounds like you don't need, well, that you don't need perfect silence. It sounds like you can write whether there's music going on um, or
Yeah,
whether it's quiet or anything, whether there's
yeah.
drilling going on or
I mean, when I say writing, to an extent, right? Obviously, if there's too much chaos, it makes it a little tricky. But I actually find that too much quiet also makes it tricky. So I think a perfect balance of like life happening around me inspires me to want to create.
Ah, interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
So writers often have furry or feathered or otherwise non-human companions to either help
Uh,
them or hinder them in their work. And do you have any? And if so, do they help or hinder you?
um, so our family has a wonderful mini labradoodle named Sushi,
Oh, sushi.
and and he like is very tiny and very energetic, and he's currently with my brother in Philadelphia right now, where he mostly resides these days. However, when we're together, which is actually quite often, he is definitely not helpful at all. It's nonstop. It's let's play, let's play. You cannot say the word play in front of this dog, or else you have a problem on your hands, because now you've signed up for something that will end up probably taking up half of your day. So not I'm definitely thankful that I don't particularly live with Sushi all the time, but I'm very thankful that he is in my life. But yes, I think that a lot of writers have cats for that reason, because they're often a little more low key, low maintenance. Dogs can be a little more energetic, and not really understanding of the fact that you need to sit down and have quiet and write a little bit. So yeah, that's my situation.
Oh, okay. Um, do you happen to have any favorite foods or drinks that must be in the vicinity when you're writing?
Yeah. Um, I am a big addict to seltzer,
Hmm.
like soda water. Uh, those who are from like the central Massachusetts area will know that Polar,
Yep.
the seltzer water company, is located in Worcester, and so I grew up drinking a ton of that. Um, I think that having that near me is helpful. I don't necessarily need it. I will say for favorite foods, this is a really it's like asking a mother to choose between children, I feel, because I am just so passionate about food. Um, I definitely my first love is Arabic food. I'm Lebanese, so Lebanese food in particular. I find that my I've tried to eat less and less meat as time has gone on just for health reasons. And my mother makes this amazing vegetarian kibbeh that is so good, and I'm obsessed with it. So I think that might be like topping the list of dishes, but you can get me with anything really cultural. I love Indian food. I love Japanese food. I love Thai food. So you'll get me with anything that has a little bit of a twist on it. You know, something with a lot of flavor. So I think that right now kibbeh might be the top. I will say that I'm also addicted to ice cream, and it's probably my worst addiction.
My favorite.
um, yeah, the sweet tooth is especially voracious when it comes to ice cream. So if you put a pint of Ben and Jerry's or something else in front of me, there may be a problem.
Okay. So how important has the New England area been to your writing?
Oh God, you know, I've lived all over New England, whether the Central Mass area or Portland, Maine, where I lived for a couple of years and actually finished the story that I started in Central Mass. So New England is really near and dear to my heart. The beginning of the story is actually set in Portland, Maine, and I just love the people and I love the vibe because one, the people are so welcoming and so tolerant of other cultures, and so as a result of that, I've been able to experience a myriad of other cultures through the grace of kind of the population in New England. And I know that unfortunately in other regions in the United States, people are a little less tolerant of different cultures. I will also say that this having the seasons, which is
Yeah.
something that having lived in other places you don't necessarily experience, but it's especially conducive to creativity for some reason. That seasonality, you find that you kind of want to write different stories or different adventures for every season. And it's just such a lovely thing that you get to witness this change and transformation around you. Um, and I would argue that the East Coast has the best food, which is always inspiring for my particular brand of creativity. So I'm a little biased, but I would say that New England has played a big role personally in you know inspiring my work, but also championing my work.
Okay, great. Um, Now, my last two questions for you is where can people find your work aside from Annie's Bookstop of Worcester? And I have to put a plug in for Annie's.
Absolutely.
And you can get George's work at Annie's if you call us at 508-796-5613, or you can email us at orders@anniesbooksworcester.com, all one word. And where
Yes.
else can people get your books?
So I would first say, please support Annie's and try and buy my book and others. I walking to that bookstore, like if you're ever in the area, swing by that bookstore. It's an experience. I love it. Um, you can get this book, online wherever books are sold. It's pretty much everywhere, whether Barnes and Noble, bookstore locations. I recommend bookshop.com because they support local independent bookstores.
Hmm.
So that's my favorite place. But you can at this point you can pre-order it, and then when it's released October 4th, you can just order it pretty much anywhere. So I would recommend supporting your local independent bookstore. Amazon has too much market share, as does Barnes and Noble, in my opinion. So support local independent bookstores. Find your local independent bookstore and ask them to order it if they don't have it in stock, and they will. And again, highly recommend Annie's Bookstore in Worcester. Just such a charming little store, and one that I love.
Thank you. And last question is, how can we follow your work and share your awesomeness?
Sure. So the first thing you can do to really help launch my career is buy this book, Shad Hadid and the Alchemists of Alexandria. One, buy it because it's a great book. Two, buy it because it's just such a lovely book. Like you want this on your bookshelf. It is so stunning. So buy this book, support my career. It would mean the world to me. If you want to follow me online, I'm at by George Jreige, my full name, on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. So find me on any of those channels. I'm also on Facebook and LinkedIn, so feel free to connect with me on those channels as well. And if you read the book, you know, I am really easy to get a hold of, so feel free to go on my contact form on my website and let me know what you think, or just say hello, and I'll always write back. So I just try to be as accessible as possible, and I'm very thankful for folks who do support my career and end up reading my books. So those are the avenues you can find me at, and yeah.
Great. Well, thank you so much, George. This has been really a great, great interview, and I appreciate your coming and talking to me.
Yeah, no, thank you, Selena, and thank you to Annie's Bookshop. I mean, this has been fantastic. I think you've asked some really great questions that I think are I'm going to be thinking about for the rest of the day for sure.
Great. And I'm sure I will be seeing you at Annie's someday.
Absolutely, absolutely. Again, HADID and the Alchemists of Alexandria. Be sure to grab a copy, folks.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.